Hi, welcome back to another episode of Nobody's Doing It Right, the podcast for those who are uncertain. My name is Kat, I am your host, and today's episode is about how it's okay to be wrong, to let yourself be wrong, to accept that you are wrong sometimes. This can apply to, being wrong in terms of like the things you say, you made a mistake, whatever, and also just being wrong in the sense of if you feel like you are inherently wrong, quote unquote, right? That you are not right, quote unquote, in the eyes of someone else or societal expectations. And this also applies to being wrong about the choices you make, even in relationships and the people you choose to date. Because I think when we fear, deeply we fear, being wrong in all these different ways, we will double down on things that are not right. If we find someone that we think is someone that we think is great at first, and then we realize like, oh, actually they're not quite right for us, they're not aligned in these ways, but we fear being wrong about our decision. If maybe as children we were made to feel dumb, stupid, incapable, if we've made mistakes, and it then becomes difficult for us to accept that we're wrong because of all these beliefs that have been tied to it. If I accept I'm wrong about this thing, that makes me stupid, that makes me incapable, whatever. When we are faced with somebody that we realize, oh, actually they're not the way I thought they were in the beginning, we tie that to our worth, we tie that to our intelligence, our value, and we think, okay, I can't admit that I was wrong about this person because what does that say about me and my ability to make decisions? That means I'm stupid, that means I'm incapable. So you might end up doubling down on something that's not working for you and it's not good for you in the long run because it's so tied to your worth and your value, when it could just be something neutral, like this just isn't right, and that's okay. And that's why it's important to let yourself be wrong. It's okay to be wrong about things. This also applies to decisions you make about your work life, your career, right? I think that also is something that we tie so deeply to our sense of self-worth and our value. And we get scared to admit that what we've decided on or what we're doing is just not quite right for us. It's okay to not be right about this thing. It's okay to decide that I need to change direction. If you don't accept that, if you don't let yourself admit that you were wrong and not make it something that's awful, you won't ever have the ability to pivot and change direction. Now, obviously, like we don't always have the option to do that in life because sometimes life sucks and the circumstances around us are not in our control. But when they are, and you still don't allow yourself to accept that, you know what, I made a mistake and it's fine, I'm just going to change direction. You're not letting yourself feel like you are worthy of getting what you want. You feel like you have to settle for the things that are not right for you because you just simply don't want to admit that you were wrong about them. And that's such a shame to you and to your inner child, who is the one who's been harboring all these feelings, right, of being stupid and incapable because they were made to feel that way when they were younger and because they made mistakes, as you do as a child. And I think that's what it all ties back to, right? Your inner child, the mistakes they made growing up, because of course they made mistakes, they were children, of course they're going to make mistakes. We're still carrying that with us to this day. We are still harboring those feelings as though they are our current reality. They are currently who we are and how we see the world. But in reality, we've actually grown so much. Our brains have developed so much more. So we are seeing the world in many more facets and many more colors and are able to not have to think of things from the place of constant survival or black and whiteness the way children have to a lot of the time, right? Because they just don't have the capacity mentally to see things in all the different layers that life exists in, right? As adults, of course we are, right? Of course we can see things that nothing's black and white, everything is gray, there's always nuance to things. But if you're operating from this place of right and wrong all the time, and wrong means not safe, then you're going to still see the world that way, right? And it can get tricky when it comes to living a life that's in alignment with who you are and what you want, right? And sabotaging yourself in many ways. So it's important to allow yourself to accept and admit that you were wrong. And this also applies, again, to mistakes that you make. So not just, decisions you make about people, about jobs or whatever, but when you make mistakes, because you will make mistakes. You will always make mistakes. You've made mistakes in the past. You will make mistakes in the future. Mistakes are unavoidable. Now, obviously, when you make a mistake, you should learn from it, right? You should take the information you've gained because you didn't have the information beforehand. That's why you made the mistake. But now that you have the information, you should take that with you, right? So that you don't make that mistake again. However, if you avoid admitting that you were wrong, that you made a mistake, which many people do, many people are very much in their ego about this and don't want to admit that, they don't take that information into account in the future. So they make the same mistake over and over again because they don't see it as a mistake. Now, obviously, everyone's idea of a mistake is different. It's about what feels like a mistake for you because it's just not in alignment with who you want to be or how you want your life to be. Not, it's a mistake because someone else deems it a mistake, so I should see it as a mistake, right? This is all from your perspective, how you want to show up for yourself. But if you do something that you think, you know what, that wasn't quite aligned with me or who I want to be, or it's, it didn't make me feel very good to act this way or say this thing, you now learned that. So rather than harboring this resentment towards yourself, or like, how could I say that? How could I be this way? I'm so stupid. How could I have treated people like that? Instead of constantly berating yourself for those mistakes, which then makes you feel paralyzed and scared to maybe show up in a different way or try something new or, apologize even. Instead of doing that, accepting, I made a mistake. I did this thing that didn't feel right for me. I'm letting myself feel this feeling that I'm, this feeling of, oh, that doesn't make me feel very good. Sitting with that feeling and then deciding now as I move forward to take that information, to take that feeling, that how it made me feel, and not do it again, or try not to, right? Because sometimes we make mistakes again, not because we are unwilling to see it as a mistake or see it as not aligned with us, but because it's hard sometimes to change old patterns and behaviors, right? So the key is not to shame yourself after making a mistake and then you make it again because you're like, oh, I'm just so stupid. That's why I keep making this mistake. No, sometimes it takes a few times to like really get the hang of being this new version of yourself, right? Or stepping into this new identity in a sense. So, take it easy on yourself, but accepting, I made this mistake. It did not feel good. And that has nothing, again, to do with my worth and my value as a person, because all people make mistakes. That's the point of life. It's all trial and error. That's the only way to live, really. There is no blueprint to follow. I think some people like the idea of there being a blueprint because it makes you feel safe and secure to think, okay, well, my parents did it this way, so I'll just do it the exact same way. Or this person did it this way, I'll do it this way and I'll be safe and that's not how it works, because everybody is so different. Everybody's so unique. So someone else's blueprint is not going to work for you. Your blueprint is different. So you will make mistakes and you have to. That's the only way to understand what your life is supposed to look like, through trial and error and doing things and feeling icky about them and not doing them again, right? Or doing them again and realizing, yeah, see, I did that thing again that I don't like. I'm going to try not to do it again next time. But accepting and being okay with, yeah, I was wrong. I did something that didn't feel good. Or I made this decision that wasn't right for me, and not doubling down, not, letting your ego take over and not wanting to admit that you were wrong because it says something about you, but letting yourself be in that. Yeah, I made a mistake. And obviously this is much easier said than done. It's difficult to fully embrace and embody the idea of mistakes as being, a normal part of life, because sometimes they do lead to it can be life or death, of course, in some circumstances, right? In others, not so much. And I think those are the ones that we have to focus on, right? Making sure that you're not berating yourself or holding on to this idea of rightness in moments when it's okay to accept that you're wrong, And I recently posted a TikTok video that's about I think it's about 7 seconds long. I post those from time to time because I love just posing a question and letting it sit with people. But I asked the question of, do you actually want them, or do you just not want to admit to yourself that you were wrong about them? And that can apply not just to relationships, but to anything, right? Do you actually want that job, or do you just not want to admit to yourself that you were wrong about it, right? Maybe you went into it thinking this is going to save me, this is going to be my dream job, and then you do it for a little bit and you realize, oh, actually, no, I was wrong about this. This is not quite what I imagined, right? This can apply to anything. Ask yourself when you notice these things come up and you notice this resistance, this deep, not even resistance in a good way, because obviously there can be good resistance that reveals what you actually want in life. But I mean resistance in the sense of feeling like you have to force it to work, right? This forcefulness of this has to work, because if it doesn't, that means I was wrong. Ask yourself, do I actually want this to work? Or am I just scared to admit to myself that I was wrong? Am I scared of being wrong? What does wrong mean to me? What does it mean to me to be wrong? What self-limiting beliefs or narratives do I have tied to the idea of being wrong? And really explore that within yourself, because I think it'll reveal a lot about how you are navigating your life. Because if being wrong means being fearful of safety, then of course you're going to try your best to avoid being wrong, even though being wrong is a natural part of life. You have to be wrong and you have to accept that you're wrong sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no bad thing about being wrong, provided that you are being mindful of not doing that again if it didn't feel aligned with who you are as a person, right? If it's hurting other people and all those things, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. This is something that I have to remind myself of a lot too, because the idea of making mistakes even as you're an adult, is so like so uncomfortable to accept that you're still making mistakes even in your 30s. Yeah, you are, and you always will. Just, there's no age you're going to get to that you're going to feel like I'm mistake free now, because every new age, every new decade poses new challenges, poses new things that you have to learn because you haven't done this before. So how can you know, right? So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was informative. I hope it offered you a different perspective and will hopefully make you feel a little bit more kind to yourself at the very least, and compassionate towards yourself. If you want to talk about these things in more detail with me, you can book a one-to-one call. If you want to read my work, you can follow me on Substack, and all my socials will be linked in the show notes below. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back again soon with another episode.